Ave Maria, everyone. Welcome back to the Roman Martyrology. This is October 16th. Saint Hedwig, religious, who of Bavarian origin and Duchess of Poland, devoted herself assiduously to assisting the poor, founding hospices for them, and after the death of her husband, Duke Henry, spent the remaining years of her life industriously in the monastery of the Cistercian nuns she founded, and of which her daughter Gertrude was abbess. She died at Trebnitz in Poland on October 15th. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, Virgin, who, having entered among the nuns of the Order of the Visitation of the Blessed Mary, ran in an admirable way along the path of perfection. Endowed with mystical gifts and particularly devoted to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, she did much to promote the worship of the Sacred Heart in the Church. At Paray-le-Monial, near Autun in France, on October 17th, she fell asleep in the Lord. At Jerusalem, the commemoration of Saint Longinus, venerated as the soldier who opened the side of the crucified Lord with a spear. In the territory of Toul in France, Saint Eliphus, who is handed down to have received the crown of martyrdom. The commemoration of Saints Martinian and Saturian, martyrs in Africa, together with two of their brothers who, at the time of the Vandal persecution perpetrated under the Arian king Genseric, slaves of a Vandal, had been converted to faith in Christ by Saint Maxima, Virgin, their fellow slaves, and after being beaten with large sticks and torn to the bone for their steadfastness in the right faith, were finally banished to the Moors, where they were sentenced to death for having led some to faith in Christ. Maxima, on the other hand, freed after having overcome many battles, fell asleep wholly in a monastery, where she had become the mother of many virgins. In the territory of Limoges and Aquitaine, now in France, Saints Amand and his disciple Junian, hermits. Near Arbonne, in present-day Switzerland, Saint Gallus, priest and monk, who, welcomed as a boy by Saint Columban in the monastery of Bangor in Ireland, spread the gospel with dedication in this region and taught his brothers the observance of the rule, until he rested almost as a centenary in the Lord. At Noyon in Neustria, now in France, Saint Momelin, bishop, who first as a monk helped Saint Audemar in his missionary work, and then succeeded Saint Eligius in the episcopal see. In the monastery of Herisfeld in Franconia in Germany, Saint Lulus, bishop of Mainz, who, as companion and collaborator of Saint Boniface in preaching, was ordained bishop by him to be a guide for the priests, a master of the rule for the monks, and for the Christian people, a faithful preacher and shepherd. In the territory of Retz, near Nantes in Brittany, Saint Vital, hermit. In the territory of Mirepoix in the Pyrenees in France, Saint Gauderic, farmer, famous for his piety towards the Mother of God. At Brioude, near Clermont-Ferrand in Aquitaine, also in France, Saint Bonnet, virgin. At Pamiers, near the Pyrenees, also in France, Saint Anastase, monk, who, born in Venice, at first led a hermitic life on the island of Rocher de Tombelaine, near Mont Saint-Michel, later a monastic life at Cluny, to finally retire in the last years in solitude. At Comminges, also on the French side of the Pyrenees, Saint Bertrand, bishop, who, on the recommendation of Pope Saint Gregory VII, worked strenuously for the reform of the Church, restored his city ruined by the neglect of time, and completely rebuilt the cathedral, where he instituted the canons regular under the discipline of St. Augustine. In the monastery of Igny in the territory of Rheims in France, Transitus of Blessed Gerard de Clairvaux, abbot. Killed by an evil monk, he was visiting this cenobie. While he was visiting this cenobie. Ad Mater Domini in Campania, Saint Gerardo Maiella, religious of the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, who, enraptured by an intense love for God, embraced an austere lifestyle wherever he found himself, and consumed by his fervor for God and for souls, fell asleep piously, still at a young age. Near Krakow in Poland, in the extermination camp of Auschwitz, Saints Aniset Koplinski of the Order of the Friars Minor Capuchin and Josef Jankowski of the Society of the Catholic Apostolate, priests and martyrs, who, during the military occupation of the homeland by the followers of an impious doctrine hostile to men and to the faith, testified to their faith in Christ until their death, one killed in a gas chamber and the other by camp guards. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. Ave Maria.